This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about Sony absorbing Bungie into PlayStation Studios, BioShock 4 definitely coming out, Helldivers 2 getting a Halo crossover, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 97. I am your host, the man whose brain is currently made out of fog and spaghetti, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man whose brain is more powerful than a 5090, aka the PS5 Pro, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Pretty slow week, pretty much uneventful. Last Saturday, my sister needed me to watch her kids since both she and her husband were going to be working the weekend, and they were going to be too busy, so I pretty much had them over, was watching them. They ended up spending the night, and they were picked up the next day. So Saturday, it was mainly just playing with them. They wanted Legos that day, so we were just like pulled out all my Lego sets, and they were enjoying the time with that. Sunday was a bit more of a gaming day. Had to do different stuff here and there, set up things, especially when they wanted to play different games. So had to do a little tweaking with things here and there, but all in all, it was a good time with them. Although I also did have to, in preparation for things I knew they wanted, get some stuff set up the night before, but I'll sort of discuss that later on. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. It hasn't been too eventful for me.
Well, that's good. I'm sure that was fun. I saw some of the games you were playing, and I figured it must have been stuff with your niece and nephew, especially when I saw how some of the characters were moving on screen. But yeah, that's good. My week has been kind of mixed. As you may or may not be able to tell, I have come down with some type of cold. I don't know exactly like how bad it will get, because it was mild most of the day today, but it was just enough to where I didn't feel like I was really going to be productive at work. So I took the day off and ended up just really using the time I had to work on my video, because that mostly didn't really require a lot of brain power. It was just kind of lots of cutting and pasting and moving stuff around. I had done a lot of recording I needed to do ahead. I'd done a lot of recording that I needed to do yesterday and in previous days. Like I pulled out my old laptop, my 2010 laptop, which has 1.6 gigahertz CPU. CPU that was from January of 2010 is when it came out, and a ATI, you heard right, graphics card, a mobile graphics card with 1 gigabyte of VRAM. So yeah, it's very very old, very slow. I was actually surprised though. I thought that the battery couldn't hold a charge, but surprisingly enough, it actually charged and held the charge. It's just like, okay, cool. But I think it's funny because that thing weighs a lot more than I remember it weighing, and so like it probably weighs, I want to say, an extra pound or two more than my current laptop, and my current laptop is significantly more powerful. I mean, the difference between 1 gigabyte of VRAM and I think it's 8 on the laptop. It's either 8 or 6. I'm pretty sure it's 8 because of 4060, mobile 4060. But anyway, so yeah, I'll talk about. Well, actually, I guess I can just keep talking about this because it's not really. I didn't play any games on it, but I So I initially tried to see if I could get my Steam library updated on the laptop, because it just, like, the last time I had run Steam on there was probably 2016, and so it really displayed a very, very small portion of my library when I had probably under 100 games. And so I tried to update Steam. Initially I couldn't get connected at all, so then I downloaded the latest version of Steam and tried to install it, and then I found out that it's not supported on Windows 7, so
Mm.
at least not anymore. So I had to come up with a different way of doing things. The annoying part about that was that any of the games that were installed on the system, I couldn't uninstall because I couldn't launch Steam. So instead, I just deleted all the games, and then just like, okay, well, I mean, that's all I can do is just delete all that information. But the games I wanted to test out, well, that is run the benchmarks, rather than actually playing, both required. All right, both of them I had on GOG. Or actually, no, I had one of them on GOG, and the other one I didn't have, but it was on sale for like $250, so I just grabbed it. Um, and so I ran the benchmarks on those games, and one of them ran really about as well as I remembered it. Um, and once again, I didn't play it; just ran the benchmark, which was like between, I think the highest it would get up to was like 35 frames per second, but the low was around like 25, which, all things considered, really wasn't that bad. It didn't bother me back in the day. I wouldn't want to play it that way today, but 720 at 720p. I think I was probably running it at 900p. So when I originally played it, so it was um, probably quite a bit different. I was hoping to get some of my disc-based games, play some of those, or run some of those, so I could record some footage. And unfortunately, my Blu-ray drive on there, like, it'll read the discs, but it won't work otherwise. And so, like, I tried, putting in Grand Theft Auto 4 and Oblivion, and because I wanted to get footage from those, but neither one of them, the disc, the drive wasn't reading them well enough. So it's like, oh well. I mean, Oblivion, I could just get the GOG version if I wanted to, but in fact, I think I might have it on GOG. I can't remember, but I didn't really think it was important enough. I got the games that I wanted to be able to demonstrate what I wanted to demonstrate. That is that upgraded hardware equals upgraded performance in games with PC. So, anyway, but with that, so like I said, since I didn't work today, I decided to just work on the video, and I spent most of the day working on that until I got to about 5 o'clock, and then I stopped because I was finally at a point where I was ready to just stop. I still have quite a bit to do, but I think I got through the bulk of the, like, really more demanding part, because I mean, for one, the biggest thing was getting stuff, like, chopped up and cut and pasted, and, like, I had recorded a couple of extra segments, or like stuff to go in segments, and I had to figure out how to splice it in properly and try to keep it flowing. But then I also had to take a lot of the gameplay stuff that I had recorded and insert the clips in different ways, especially with the ones where I was doing the benchmarks. And all that stuff ended up just taking quite a bit longer to get through. So I think there's maybe only one other section where I would have clips to insert to where it would be more complicated. And most of the other times, if I have clips inserted, it'll be more along the lines of just a single clip layered. But I did learn how to do a couple new things with how to display the videos and stuff like that in tiles and that sort of thing when I'm overlaying them on footage. So that is a helpful thing to learn. So anyway, like I said, spent a lot of time on that. But as a result, I basically only just I didn't play any games today until probably about an hour or so ago, and I played for like 20-30 minutes before I stopped. There's something on the Steam Deck, so I'll talk about that a bit later. But oh, one thing that did happen on Sunday it was I don't know if I wouldn't say it was entirely scary per se, but it was also kind of like has a little worried. So, as I mentioned before, my brother-in-law is the pastor for our church, and he goes up to preach on Sunday, and maybe like a minute in, he's saying basically like he can't read what he's looking at, like he's having trouble reading it and stuff, and he's having a hard time expressing what's wrong exactly. And he was pretty sure, like after talking a little bit, that it was probably an ocular migraine, which he's had before. And the last time he had it, he got it before church, and he just made it really bad because he kept trying to push through it, and it ended up having to cancel. And then one of the elders took over for him preaching. But this time, it just came on like as he was starting to preach, and so he had to step down, and we basically just had a very short service. We just sang the rest of the songs and did communion, and then we left. And he seemed to be doing fine by the time we were done with the service. But yeah, he got checked out with a doctor and everything. Pretty sure it wasn't a stroke or anything like that, so at least that part was good. So anyway, he seems to be doing fine now. He was able to lead our men's breakfast thing, which we restarted last week, and lead the teaching on that, and then taught discipleship tonight. But since I haven't been feeling well today, I didn't go. And what was I saying? Sorry, my brain is definitely very much in a fog right now. I was feeling fine most of the day. Well, fine is maybe not the right word, but I wasn't feeling as bad most of the day. It was like it started off the beginning of the day, I was feeling pretty miserable. And so then I, called in sick for work. And then as I was sitting here working on stuff, I was feeling basically fine. And then once I actually got to around 5 o'clock, I started to feel like brain fog and stuff like that. And it was just, yeah, it's been kind of like that the rest of the evening. But anyway, going back to pastor brother-in-law, he seems to be doing just fine. So he'll be back to preaching on Sunday. I think that they may have, well, I know at least one of our elders has a sermon prepared just in case, but hopefully it won't come up again. This is only the second time that he's had that type of ocular migraine. This is the first time that it actually interrupted him in the middle of a sermon. So, but yeah, I can't think of anything else. Like I said, my brain is just it is fog and spaghetti right now. That's what it is, plain and simple. And I'm not like not fog and spaghetti to where I'm worried about anything, or I'm just out of it. But I'm glad we're here talking, and looking forward to talking about video games as much as my brain will allow me to. So, all right. Well, what have you been playing this week?
All right, so this is probably the only, I guess you could say, game that I've played that wasn't influenced by my niece and nephew, and that was Cuphead. I didn't play too much of this. It was really just trying to I was gonna play more, but with them coming over, it changed my plans. But I finally got past that stupid train boss fight that I was having difficulties with last week. And eventually later on, I went back and tried to get the A rank for that just so I could get that achievement since that was the last boss I needed for that island. I tried going back to the dragon boss fight from the second island, and that fight is just so annoying because I can't meet all the criteria I need for an A rank. It's either I take too long, which is I'm fine with taking too long to beat the boss, but I take too much damage, which ends up costing me points as well. So that's something that I'll have to come back later on, try to think of some different strategies, maybe use a different weapon instead, but that's just been a pain. So right now I'm in the final area of the game, and it's pretty much, well, at least it's essentially two bosses in this area. And the first boss is a gauntlet because you have a roulette wheel and you jump and you hit the dice, or you hit the die, and depending on what base you land on, it determines the boss you face. And once you actually get all the way across the roulette wheel, then you actually fight the main boss, King Dice himself. And I've only gotten to him so far once. And unfortunately, I was not prepared for his first move, and I just died right at that point. But it's interesting. Some of the bosses are easier than others. Like certain ones I can pretty much get through without taking any damage, but other ones, they're the ones that are a bit trickier. And I mean, there are a couple of bosses where I know what to expect, but for some reason, whenever they attack, it's a bit sudden that I just don't catch it at all. And I end up taking damage or dying altogether. And then there's like one boss where the biggest problem is the fact that there are some foreground objects that pop up, and that really messes with my vision because it's a bit fast paced. And so you need to be, looking around and make sure you can see everything. But when there's a tree that blocks your view, that kind of messes things up for you. But I think it's just going to take a bit of practice trying, and also some more understanding and memorization of the patterns of some of these bosses, just to like get through it properly. And you can sort of help yourself out and give yourself some wiggle room, because if you can time the die properly, you can either land on a free space where you don't face any bosses, or you can land on a space that has a heart, and that will give you extra health, which if you're as poorly as I am, you'll need that extra health. But yeah, I've messed up the timing sometimes, so either I don't land on the square I want, or I happen to accidentally pass the square I want. So sometimes I can time it right, sometimes I just can't. So it's going to take some more practice, but I'm glad to finally be here at the end of things, at least. Next game up is Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Now, I was actually a bit surprised about this game because originally I played this on my old laptop, and I thought that the game didn't have cloud support or cloud save support. So I was preparing to try to find the location of the save and transfer it over to my computer, so that way I could have everything set up for us. Turns out that it actually did have cloud save support, and so I was like, oh wow, granted, if I looked at the Steam page, I probably would have noticed that, because I later on went back and saw, it actually says it has cloud support. Why did I never see that before? But I went to a website called PC Gaming Wiki. Has information just for games that are on PC, but also sort of like where you can buy these games from, and as well as the file locations, so that way you can do whatever you need to. And I was looking up, trying to figure out like where I would need to save or where I would need to pull the game saves from, and where I need to transfer them to, since the directory would be different on Linux. But after seeing there's cloud save support, I said, all right, cool, I'll download it. Unfortunately, I realized that I did not make as much progress in the game as I thought I did. I think I was confusing the Complete Saga with the original games that I played on the GameCube, because I 100% of those games, but I didn't do it with this game. So I knew my niece, she kept saying she wants to play as Darth Vader, and so I thought, all right, I'll quickly go ahead, try to get Darth Vader. So I finished up episode 3, since I remembered that's how you get Darth Vader. That's only for for Lego Star Wars 1. In the complete saga, you actually have to beat episode 6 completely. So I went through episode 6 after I realized I made that blunder and played through that. Some of the levels, I'll admit, are, or at least they seem shorter than I remember them being, which is interesting. But I mean, maybe it's just me, but I do know that some levels were tweaked here and there for the complete saga from what I've read on the wiki. So maybe that's something to do with it. The game is definitely enjoyable. It's definitely fun to play. And I think you mentioned this before, and this is the one downside I would say about the game, is the fact that it doesn't have complete split screen, and that just makes it hard when you're playing as co-op, because you have to work cooperatively with whoever you're playing with. So if someone is going one way and you're going a different way, you both have to essentially agree on where you're going to go, because you can't move the camera in two different directions. So that's probably like the one downside to that. And it is also a bit of a downside, if you're playing with really young kids who don't understand that concept. So you might be trying to quickly get something, but then because they're trying to just like keep going forward, you're like, okay, I guess I'll just come back later and try to get that collectible there. But they enjoyed it. They had fun. At one point, they essentially were just standing outside having fights with all the other characters, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, I remember doing that back in the day when I was younger too, just like having straight on brawls going on, all the characters fighting. So they enjoyed that. I enjoyed that as well. So yeah, good stuff there. Played a little bit of Stardew Valley, didn't do too much, and also I made sure to record the gameplay with us playing specifically this time, because I realized I never recorded the gameplay of split screen co-op for the game, and it's definitely interesting to say the least. And I definitely would not recommend doing this on a Steam Deck just because of how small that screen is. Because if you're trying to read stuff with enough players, it's just chaos going on. And I did have to pause what I was doing a lot of times, because the kids are young enough that they can't really they can't read yet. They recognize letters, but they can't read full-on sentences and words and stuff. So my niece kept asking me, hey, what is this character saying to me? And so I would have to stop, pause, read it, and keep going. And then niece was saying, hey, why did the character like this? Why the character didn't like this? And I said, oh, well, it's just because something happened here, or you gave them something that they didn't like, and stuff like that. So again, usual stuff of trying to balance what I'm doing on the screen while also trying to answer their questions for stuff. And also at the same time, whenever they tell me, hey, come follow me, and I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm gonna drop what I'm doing and go wherever you are. But yeah, so we didn't play too much of that, but we did some stuff there. And then lastly, and this was an odd and out of the blue request, and that was Minecraft. My niece mentioned this and she asked if I had it, and I said I did. But the thing was, even though I bought this at least several years ago, I had never installed it even once or done anything with that. So I had to take some time to figure out how to install it. And I also, like a long time ago, back when Mojang completely owned Minecraft and was completely separate from Microsoft, I had an account there, and I was trying to figure out how to get into the account, and it kept saying my credentials were incorrect, and I thought, well, I'm pretty certain this is the right email. I wasn't certain about the password, but everything that I normally could have used for a password back then, I tried entering, but that didn't work. So ultimately I decided, you know what, maybe I'll just go ahead and try to go into my Microsoft account and see about getting the game through there. And fortunately, that did work. I was able to get access to the game. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the information they have, or at least the information they provide for getting the game to run on Linux, is useful, or at least on the Arch-based side of things, because they sent essentially Microsoft links the Arch wiki page about it, and I went through that and I thought, this makes no sense at all. So I was looking online trying to figure out like how to install Minecraft on Linux, and then there was like a guide that said use well actually to use Prism or I think it was on Reddit or something like that said use Prism Launcher. So I went saw that I installed that. All I had to do was just install or at least just log into my Microsoft account, and I was able to get the game set up and running, and it was pretty straightforward from there, and the game ran pretty well. And later on I decided I'm gonna try and see if I can get it also running on Linux, if or I mean not Linux, but the Steam Deck, just because of the fact that Prism Launcher was just in the package manager, the GUI package manager. So I said it should be there as well. It's also, SteamOS is also running an Arch-based system, so it should be showing up in Discover. And it did show up there, so it's also easy to install it there.
Good.
And I had to create I had to create a shortcut so that way the way I had it set up to run in Steam on my Steam Deck was different. I had to specifically create a shortcut for the Microsoft or for Minecraft itself and not for the launcher, so that way it would go straight into the game and not have to worry about tinkering with the launcher at all. And also I think it also helps doing it that way because it's easier for the controls. But yeah, it does run well on the Steam Deck. In fact, I was a bit concerned because the frame rate was fluctuating a bit, but I think it's because the game was still the world was loading technically. So after probably a couple minutes, then it was more stable and actually was pretty much essentially locked at 90. So
Good.
it was doing pretty well there. I did some stuff here and there with the game. I tried to get some fundamentals set up, try to get some supplies, but didn't really venture too far. There's one thing I will have to tinker with and see if I can figure out how to get this to work, is because it doesn't seem like there's any sort of cloud-based save setup. Because I know that when I installed it on my Steam Deck, my save file from my desktop wasn't appearing. So maybe I have to upload it or something. As far as right now, I'm not seeing any type of save support. So that is a bit of a bummer because I don't necessarily want to have to start a new game,
Right.
especially if I make a lot of progress on one save file. So I'll see. I'll eventually go back and see if there's something I can do there. Otherwise, I'll just, I guess, continue playing it only on my desktop. But yeah, that is everything that I have played this week.
Well, can't you just copy your save over manually?
Yeah, that actually is something I could definitely probably do. Yeah, I definitely have to look to figure out where that is, but that should definitely be feasible.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of a pain, but if there's no other option, it's like, well, choice between being able to copy over your save and not. But yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let me try to. I have a handful of games that I technically played this week, but a lot of them were just so I could record some footage, because for my big PC video. So, instead of doing individual things for it, I just ended up putting 3 of them together, 3 of the 4 together. The 4th one I just didn't get, I forgot to move over the footage, but so the 3 games that I booted up to test out on my desktop for the video were Doom Eternal, Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition, and Kingdom Hearts 3. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of leaving HDR turned on when I recorded Kingdom Hearts 3, and I tried turning it off, and then so with HDR turned on, the recording comes out really washed out, but then when I turned it off, the colors were just really, really weird. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but so I mean, like, it looked fine on the screen, but then when I actually looked at the recording looked worse than it did with the washed out colors in HDR. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but I basically was just playing these 3 games, so that I'd have the footage. Of course, Darksiders 2, as I had previously stated, on my desktop, can run at a near lock 240 frames per second. If I turn up the shadows to the maximum, then it drops a bit, but I just decided to keep the shadows at medium so that I could get that 240 because I wanted to. But I really didn't move the needle much at all on that. It was really just getting some footage. And with Doom Eternal, this is actually the first time I've run it on my desktop. Because previously I'd only ever played it, at least the PC version, on the Steam Deck. And I was getting typically between 120 to 150 frames per second with all visual settings maxed out. The only thing I left off was ray tracing, and I did test it out with ray tracing, but it was like a 30 frames per second difference. I mean, getting into the 90s, which it's like the 90s are still great, but for a game like this, like I'm not paying attention to the ray tracing while I'm trying to stay alive, running around killing stuff. So, I turned that off and just went back for the higher frame rate. Unfortunately, I was very rusty, and on top of that, because the controls are just different enough between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal to where I hadn't quite configured all the button customizations, so that was definitely throwing me off a bit. I did end up getting it like more or less sorted to where if I decided to play it on my desktop in the future, then I should be able to handle it more intuitively. But yeah. Then in Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't even remember what the frame rate was. That one, I still just... It's weird because the controls are just not intuitive right now, and it's mostly because of the fact that I've played so many other games since the last time I played it, and I remember when I had played it before, I had slightly customized the button layouts for the purpose of trying to get it to feel a little more natural. And then when I went back to it, it wasn't feeling natural, and so I tried doing the default controls, and those felt even less natural. I think whenever I actually decide I want to play that game, I'm probably just going to have to mess around with the buttons again and try and get something that feels good to me, because it's the main problem is it's not just that it doesn't feel natural, it's that you can't get it to change the button prompts on screen. So the button prompts will show what they're supposed to be, even if they're not. And so originally all I had really done was I made it so that circle was the confirm button, so that I could have X for jumping, or yeah, I could have X for jumping. And then I swapped the positions of square and circle so that basically square was for attacking and then circle was for dodging and blocking. But it's just because it's been so long since the last time I was actually playing the game, it didn't feel natural to me at all. And yeah, so anyway, like I said, I really just did these for the sake of having gameplay footage. I'm probably going to have to go back into Kingdom Hearts and try to re-record the footage again and see if I can figure out what I need to do differently in order to get it to look the way it's supposed to, instead of looking so weird with the visuals. So, but yeah, not much of anything else to say about that. I did play a little bit more Sekiro. The footage I have here is just of that ninja guy in the well that I told you about, since I had recorded that on the Steam Deck. But the I did move past that a bit. Let's see here, I got to, I can't remember the name of the area, but it's an area where you fight monkeys. And I fought all the monkeys and I beat them. and I guess they were considered a proper boss. I don't know if they technically are or not, because the fight's so different from the rest of them. Um, but I took care of them, and I got Mortal Draw, um, and I spent some time just grinding in the area right around where you get Mortal Draw, just killing some of those zombie priests with the centipedes that pop out of them and pain in the butt. Um, but yeah, I didn't really play much. It was basically just a little bit, and I don't think I'm definitely not done with the game. I just wanted kind of a break from it for a bit. So after stuff we talked about last week, I decided to boot up Persona 3 Reload for the first time in quite a while, and I'm definitely into it again. Basically, if it wasn't for the fact that there are times where I need to just focus on the story, I would probably have played it more. But like when I'm doing wandering through Tartarus, the main dungeon, then I can listen to stuff at the same time, because I'm just killing enemies, opening chests, that sort of thing. But then whenever I needed to do stuff that was story related, then I couldn't listen to something else at the same time, so I would have to do that separately. But it was during that time that I went ahead and played some more Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I just went ahead and went back to the main world and decided that I'll keep slowly working on it, just trying to clear out all the areas that I haven't cleared out yet. It's pretty much just whenever I'm at a point in Persona 3 Reload that I am at a story point where it's just basically like I need to progress in the story, and I can't just do more grindy stuff like going through the dungeon. Then it's those points when I'll probably be playing Assassin's Creed, pretty much. So I'm still hoping to have it done before Christmas rolls around, so that I'll be finally ready to move on to a different Assassin's Creed game when I do my annual rewatch of Die Hard. But yeah, so that's pretty much it with that. I only played that on the Steam Deck. But something that I ended up grabbing yesterday, and you already know about this, but let me back up ever so slightly. Of course, with having tested it out. Oh, you know what? Actually, here we go. Before I get to that, so I think I pretty much already told you this, but I'll just tell for listeners. For the testing that I did, doing the benchmarks for those games that I wanted to check and see how it ran on my old laptop versus my 2016 PC build, which is the one that I have now in the guest room, versus my current build. The games I chose were Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, the 2013 game. Technically, it's the 2014 because it's the definitive edition of the game. And then Batman Arkham Knight. And so, Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, and I'll just already say I'm not showing the footage here. I probably won't even bother trying to include it. But with that one was getting 25 to 35 frames per second. And of course, I wasn't actually playing these games. I make that very clear. I was just running the benchmark. And benchmark is not always a perfect representation of how a game runs, but it's still at least helpful to get some metrics. And then when I ran it on my 2016 build, I should also mention that with that game, it was like medium low settings at 720p. And then when I ran it on the 2016 build, it was more high settings than not at 1080p, and I was getting almost a locked 75 frames per second, which is the maximum refresh rate of the monitor there for that computer. So looks a lot better, runs a lot better. And then when I ran it on my desktop, on my current desktop, I was getting an average of 121 frames per second, with the high point being 145 or something like that. So drastic difference from that standpoint. And these are the GOG versions, in case I didn't already mention that. But with Arkham Knight, now the laptop, the old laptop, the 2010 laptop, I knew would not be able to run that game. And boy, it cannot run that game. Even when I lowered all the settings to the lowest possible settings, had no extra effects on anything. I mean, you have 640 by 480 and lowest possible settings. The game was running with the average of 15 frames per second. Lots of graphical glitches, all sorts of like major problems. Like, it was horrendous, and I'm glad that I never tried playing it on there. But then when I ran it on the desktop with basically medium-high settings, 1080p, almost a locked 60 frames per second. The average was 59 frames per second, which is still very good. It looked way better, ran great. Very pleased with how it ran on there. And that's where I actually played it on PC, was on that build. But then I, ran that same benchmark on my desktop, and I think the lowest it ever got down to was like 56, but that was like once or twice. The rest of the time, the high, I think it was getting around 148 frames per second. The average was 120 frames per second. And that's with everything maxed out at 1440p. So that's including all the NVIDIA effects, all the extra effects on there. So yes, it ran very, very well. And yeah. So anyway, with having seen Batman Arkham Knight and having watched my share of VG Fight School videos where he's a big player of Gotham Knights, and I've been curious about it for a while. I've been kind of thinking about grabbing it, but I never pulled the trigger, even though it would regularly get down to $12 on Steam. And I was thinking, okay, next time it drops down to $12, I'll pick it up, because that's cheap. It's not. It's probably worth $12, but it's not on sale currently. So I looked on Instant Gaming, $4.78. So I grabbed it and I played a bit. So I mostly played on my desktop last night. I didn't play a ton of time. I think all settings maxed out, 1440p, no upscaling or anything. I was getting, let's see here, at least in the earliest part of the game, I was getting 120 plus frames per second without really any noticeable drops, apart from cutscenes, which are locked at 60 frames per second. I'd rather have cutscenes locked at 60 frames per second than have them locked at 30. But then when I got into the open world, particularly getting on the bat cycle, it was dropping down into the high 80s. It might have dropped as low as the high 70s, but that was just when you're moving really fast and you got a bunch of stuff popping out at you all at once. I really would have to test it a lot more with just regular traversal in the open world, see how it does. But yeah, I'm looking at the video footage now, and at least indoors, like, it was getting into the mid to high 130s as well. And so it runs very, very well. And what's most sad about this is that the game only runs at 30 frames per second on current gen consoles. And I know part of that is because of co-op, because you can do co-op in this, but still, it's like, man, I'm getting over 100 frames per second, and that's without messing with any settings at all. I just let it. All I did was max everything out, and I'm running it at this beautiful buttery smooth frame rate, and it just runs incredibly. Speaking of which, so I looked into the MSI Afterburner, and that works well for some games. It doesn't work with every game. Like any game with anti-cheat, it seems like it doesn't pop up. It doesn't display, because I tried doing it with Destiny 2 and it didn't display. But it turns out that Steam itself actually has something that can measure all of that as a display. I mean, it doesn't display it in like portrait mode. It's just like a strip on top of the screen, kind of similar to when you do fewer things on the Steam Deck. But yeah, I mean, it was displaying all that information, and that's very useful. I will definitely make use of that in the future, because that's much clearer than just having that little number in the top corner. And while I wouldn't necessarily want it when I'm playing games normally, having it up there just for the sake of being able to display that for people who want to look at footage and that sort of thing would be helpful. But yeah, so anyway, as far as the actual gameplay goes, it doesn't control quite the same as the Batman Arkham games, unfortunately. There are just some differences, particularly like the crouch and run are different. And I've only played as Batgirl so far, so it's not. She doesn't have the same moves as Batman. That's the one thing that I really wish. I wish she just controlled like Batman. I mean, I don't care. She doesn't have to be as strong as Batman, obviously, because you have Barbara Gordon versus big, huge, muscular Bruce Wayne. But it would be nice if I could, like glide, for example. And I think eventually she does gain the ability to glide, which would be really helpful for traversal out in the world. But it is what it is. So yeah, I only played like 30, 40 minutes, something like that. Really didn't do much more than do like the intro mission, and then going back to headquarters on the Bat Cycle, and then I did like one other mission besides that, and a little bit of wandering around the world, around Gotham. But yeah, I wish that mainly the two main things that I'm missing using her versus being able to use actual Batman, at least currently, are being able to glide and having the what's the thing that the Batman gets starting in Arkham City that lets him speed up the grapple.
Oh, the grapnel accelerator.
Yes. Yeah. Doesn't have it. I
Yeah.
don't have either one of those things. At least not yet.
Uh.
I don't know if I get them later. But those are like the two things that I really miss, because it just makes such a huge difference in how fast you move around. So, but yeah, I don't know how much I'll be playing this. I ended up also installing it on Steam Deck, and I've messed around with things a bit. Mostly, I mean, basically, I've just kept it at 30 frames per second, because I've tried doing it at 40, and it was like I could sometimes get around there when I was indoors, but whenever I'm outdoors, 30 is much more doable. And it's all low settings, of course. I've mostly what I've played around with has been using upscalers, whether or not they're worth using. And I've been finding in general they seem to work well enough, but I just haven't really settled on any one in particular that I would want to use. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, under $5 for this game, like that was a great deal. And for something that I could just play a little bit here and there, I mean, it's a good kind of, it has the potential to be a good grindy kind of game where you just wander around and beat up bad guys and do missions and that sort of thing. Could be fun from that standpoint. I know it's not going to be on the same level as the Batman Arkham games by any stretch, but still has the potential to be at least reasonably fun. and it runs really well, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, that's everything I've played this week.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I guess while we're still on the topic, so um do you automatically start as Batgirl, or do you get to choose which
You
character
get to choose.
you okay. I just didn't know if that was a situation where you start as one character, then you unlock the others, or if right off the bat you could, choose.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you can with swap them early on or not because I haven't played very much. But at least initially, you do have a choice who you want to start as.
okay. But that's nice. Like, that's good then. Uh, yeah, I definitely agree with you that not having her be able to glide, at the very least, if you even if you don't give her the accelerator, at least early on, is definitely odd. And it's also a bit strange too, because in her DLC for Arkham Knight,
Right.
she could glide
Yeah.
as well, which is just weird. And actually, now I think about it, let me just quickly check something because I want to make sure that I don't say something wrong right now.
Well,
And
I can already tell you that this is not
okay,
following the Arkhamverse. It's not the same storyline. Now, it does from the very beginning of the game. This is not really spoiling anything because it's literally within the first 30 seconds of the game. Bruce is dead. There's no Batman anymore, which is the reason why you're playing as the other four. Um, but it's supposed to be the Court of Owls is the storyline. Something to do with that.
okay.
Which, of course, I haven't come across any of that. I just remember that from when I first heard about the game. I do want to know one other thing real quick that I forgot to mention. That is, unfortunately, this game very much has the modern protagonist syndrome issue where you have your person being very chatty. But when I think back to it, I realize Bruce was sometimes like that in the Arkham games too. So, I don't think he was nearly as bad. I mean, he's not like silent like Dark Souls protagonist, but he did talk some. I wish that there was a way to turn that off. I'm gonna have to look and see if there's a mod that lets you make it so they're not constantly giving you hints because that's really obnoxious. Like I'd rather just press a button if I need a hint instead of having them constantly like, oh, you need to do this. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I looking at it now because I was very curious about the outfit design, because I was thinking, depending on what they do, she should be able to glide, but I see they're using the short cape version
Mm-hmm.
of Batgirl, which sadly means no gliding abilities, unless they do something later
Yeah,
on.
I think she's supposed to be able to glide later on because I feel like some of the other gameplay that I've seen previously had her gliding sometimes, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
Okay. And while it's a bit of a toss up, I would kind of hope that they would give Nightwing his suit glider. I know that at least he had it in the animated series, and I think in a couple comic runs he also had it as well. So if they give him his glider ability, that would be great, because I really feel like if you're going to be part of the Bat family, you should have the ability to glide.
Yes.
I feel like that's almost like a given. Um, so the fact that they don't seem to have this, I mean, it's just weird. I mean, I know that also not all of them could do it in the Arkham games. Like, I feel like Batgirl is probably the only one who could do it. I don't think Robin
Yeah.
could do it, and then I'm pretty certain that Nightwing couldn't do it either,
I'm pretty sure.
which is a shame. But they should, someone should be able to do it, and I know Red Hood definitely would not be able to glide
Right.
at all either.
Yeah.
But yeah, so also when you get around to playing this, or if you stick around and play some more with it, let me know how the combat feels between different characters.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with how they perform, mechanically wise, because someone like Nightwing has his sticks, and Red Hood's going to be just going guns blazing. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know about how these characters contrast gameplay wise. Um, and I guess you were talking about grinding it out. So do you think there's a danger that this game could be too grindy, as far as you almost end up having to grind just to actually get through the game or get through a part, because the boss or the enemies are just too tanky to deal with as you are?
I feel like I've heard that that is an issue with this game, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily like you have to grind, just more like enemies tend to be tanky. I mean, at least, if you get a stealth takedown, they still go down in one hit. Well, with the basic grunts anyway. Um, Beyond that, I couldn't tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure that this game is designed to be pretty grindy. So, um, I from what it seems like from my perspective, it seems like it's very much like the most recent Assassin's Creed games, where you really can you don't necessarily have to grind, but naturally, if you're doing a lot of stuff, you'll pretty much just level up and everything without much difficulty. It just kind of happens naturally. um, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be as quick and easy as it was in the Batman games. So we'll just wait and see, I guess. But I mean, I will probably still play this a bit here and there. I don't know how much I'll play it on the Steam Deck. It kind of just depends on my mood, I think. I mean, like, the only real reason I even played it this evening on the Steam Deck was just because of the fact that I already had it booted up, and I felt like just playing something that didn't require any brain power, and that definitely did not require any brain power. So, yeah.
And then also on that topic, or at least you just mentioned it, I was wondering, so you said you still had to finish some areas in Assassin's Creed. About how many more areas do you think you have left to wrap up? Oh, no.
I mean, the thing is that it varies a lot, like how many different points of interest there are in each area. I would say I probably have like 75% of it done, but unfortunately, I'm pretty sure the game doesn't have any sort of tracker from that standpoint to where I'd be able to tell for sure how many I have. I think it's more just kind of from looking at the map. I'm guesstimating.
Okay. Um, and then one question that is necessarily game related, but I guess hardware related. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2016 build, that is using a GTX 980 or 980 Ti?
Yeah, just the 980. Yeah, it's a GTX 980 i5. I think it's 6500K and 32 gigs of, I think, DDR3 RAM, probably.
Okay. Well, that's considering the performance you were mentioning, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
To say. That's definitely showing it's very capable setup.
Yeah, at some point I may move my old motherboard that I had, from my current build, the one that I had right before this build, the one that I had in between the 2016 build and this current build. I might move that to the old computer with the 980, just to give it some extra oomph, but I haven't really decided, because the main issue with that is just making sure that there's enough power there. Or, I mean, not enough power, but making sure that I have something to do with my different parts. And so what I may end up doing whenever I eventually get to the point of upgrading my GPU is I may just take my 2080 Ti, put it with the motherboard from the build I had up until recently, with its CPU and everything, and then um, just build a third PC with that, so that basically I'd have one that's um, essentially the equivalent of my 2019 build, and then have my um, have my current build with a much stronger GPU than what I have right now. But I'm not in a rush by any stretch. What I'm kind of thinking is maybe the next time AMD puts out a newer GPU, I may go for it, but I haven't really settled on anything. I mean, there's a rumor which I'm not sure I believe about. Supposedly there's going to be a 32 gig AMD card, but I'm very skeptical because I thought that AMD was done doing the stronger cards, so I honestly don't know. But if that happens, I would probably try to see if I could get one at launch before they, sell out and get crazy expensive. Because if I could do that, that would be a good excuse for me to upgrade and then just be set for a really long time. Because, I mean, right now, like, I don't have to upgrade at all. I could stick with what I have and I'd be golden for a really long time. It just that, more power is never hurts at anything. It's like I can run my games even better. Hey, especially for more demanding things like Monster Hunter Wilds, that's horribly optimized. I mean, not that I'm like anxious to play that by any stretch. I think I probably would be more anxious to play it if it wasn't for the fact that I have multiple Monster Hunter games that I've either never finished or started but never finished. And yeah. So anyway, I don't see myself actually upgrading anytime soon. I'm just it would be very tempting if such a card were to come out. Because I have definitely been leaning more towards leaving behind Nvidia and moving to AMD. Um the only thing that I would be missing out on by switching over to AMD is just the DLSS is very good. But from what I've seen, it seems like FSR 4, they're finally actually using artificial intelligence for their upscaling instead of just whatever the garbage is they've been using for the first 3 gens, and that it like actually works well now. Because I'd be okay with using upscaling if I needed to, but of course if I had that strong of a card, I wouldn't need to upscale. I just run everything native at max settings and never break a sweat for, many years. But anyway.
All right. That I think is everything from me.
I realized I completely forgot to talk about one of the games that I
Oh,
played because I didn't put it in the or no, I did put it in the thing. I just forgot to talk about it. I'll try to make this fairly short. The last game that I played that I forgot to mention earlier was I played that demo for The Adventures of Elliot on the Switch 2. That the new action RPG from Square Enix that's in the Octopath Traveler, it's the HD 2D action RPG. And what I played, so I didn't finish the demo. I don't know exactly how long the demo is because Square Enix, it kind of varies with these, whether they're longer or shorter. But what I played was pretty good. It seemed like it ran at 60 frames per second, which is important. It should do that on the Switch 2. There's no reason why it shouldn't. I mean, heck, there's not really a good reason why it shouldn't run that at Switch 1, but I digress. It has really good music. It basically feels kind of like similar to Zelda, except that you don't have as many items that you can use at a time, which is a little odd. But like you swap between, you can swap between different items pretty easily on the fly, which I guess is better than a lot of the older Zelda games, because those you have to go to the menu and then switch it out, whereas this you can hold down a button and then swap between them quickly, pretty easily. Um, but yeah, the bit that I played, it was good. I put it on hard difficulty just because I felt like, trying it out. I've been doing that more and more with games lately, and yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. One thing that I do really like that they did in this game that they haven't done in their previous HD 2D games is that they actually made it so that when the characters are conversing, it shows their portraits instead of it just being instead you just see the little chibi um, sprite model. You actually see the portrait of the character while they're talking, so you can see what they're supposed to actually look like. And I wish that the earlier games had done that as well, because it's a nice touch. It's something that helps to uh, get more invested in the characters and everything. So um, yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to say about that one, but I like what I played. Well, I guess I will say the last thing I'll say is that there is a decent chance that this could end up being a day one purchase for me on Steam.
Nice. Did you happen to play the mana games at all before?
I tried playing Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo through emulation many years ago, probably back in like 2000. Um, I didn't play very long though before I I gave up. I think I just was having a hard time because I wasn't very good at games at that point, since I hadn't even had my own video games for very long, or rather I hadn't had like that type of video game, and so I was very new to it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Only one of the main reasons why I was asking was partially because you mentioned the switching of items, and it reminded me of the Game Boy Advance game, I think Sword of Mana, because there was a feature called the Ring Command, which allowed you to cycle through stuff. And so I was wondering, I mean, I haven't played that in a long while, and I didn't play much of that. And I was wondering if it was similar to that, because it sounded very similar.
Yeah, it sounds like that's probably the same thing.
Okay. So, okay, cool. Yeah, I might keep my eye out on that then, since it sounds like it's pretty good. And I'll definitely have to look at your gameplay when you post it up as well in the video format. So, yeah, it definitely sounds good.
Yeah, one thing that I did like was that if you have good timing on your block, you can deflect attacks. I mean, it's not quite parrying, but it's similar enough to where it was like, okay, that's nice, if you happen to block it just the right time. But yeah,
Nice.
I liked what I played. All right, sounds good. And I mean, it should be pretty obvious, but I decided to sit down this week because I wasn't sure if I could not get lightheaded standing up. So I'm sitting down for this week, and I'm just going to relax. And I'm going to let you take lead on more of these stories, because I think you can express things better than I can when it comes to at least explaining the stories in the first place. And then I will do my best to provide commentary that's at least reasonably not brain foggy, I guess. So,
Right. All right. All right. So then I guess we can go ahead and head on over to the news. So, first thing to discuss, and this comes from PC Gamer, and it's information that Sony is possibly, or not possibly, but is definitely gearing up to fully merge Bungie into PlayStation Studios. Like so, this is from PC Gamer, and this information came through a translated interview. Let me actually pull this up correctly here. This actually came originally from Seeking Alpha and translated from Japanese. And let me see who was discussing this here. The interview was with the Sony Chief Financial Officer and CEO Lin Tao, who was talking during the recent quarterly earnings, and talking about how the days of independence for Bungie are coming to an end. Here's the quote. At the time of acquisition, we were offering a very independent environment, so that was one way of thinking. However, thereafter, we have gone through structural reform as we announced last year. So from this type of independence, this independence is getting lighter. So Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more a part of PlayStation Studio, and integration is also proceeding. So in the long term, you can see this as an ongoing process. The direction is to become part of PlayStation Studios. And yeah, there's definitely been some talk here, t- discussions about Bungie's past struggling with Destiny 2, dissatisfaction from the public, and also dissatisfaction from Sony as well, with the PlayStation chairman Hiroki Totoki calling for more accountability from Bungie leadership. It's regarding the development budgets and their deadlines, and that's essentially everything there regarding this topic. I have some thoughts, obviously, but seeing as you are a long time Destiny player who has more insight than I would into this, I will let you go first.
All right. Well, I do want to say that first of all, as I said, when we first, I think we discussed it back when it first happened, or sometime after it first happened. I can't remember exactly how all that worked, but when we first started having like real regular problems with Bungie, that the idea was that it was possible that Sony could end up um, taking over Bungie, absorbing them. And at the time, I was very much, I very much held the position that I thought that would probably be good, because while I'm not a fan of how PlayStation does things in general, I also am really not a fan of the direction that Bungie has gone, and just the way that they've been showing themselves to be exceedingly irresponsible with how they've managed their money and everything else. Um, the idea of all of this is, I mean, the idea that this is probably happening, especially after, not only the disasters they've had with some of the expansions for Destiny 2, but also with everything that's happened relating to Marathon. I can't say that I'm surprised by this, and I think that honestly, this is one situation where I would kind of hope that PlayStation can right the ship, I guess you could say. It's difficult because there's a lot of people at Bungie who are very talented. I mean, Destiny 2, in its core, is very solid, but and that's a combination of both the work that they have put in over the years with correcting things that needed to be corrected, and with uh, just improving things in general. And I feel like they've done a good job in some ways, but they've had so many misses in between their hits that it's just been really all over the place. And of course, with everything that's happened with Marathon, the stolen assets, and just the fact that they were going to be putting out a game that really no one asked for. Rebooting their old franchise and trying to make it into something that it never was before, and making it as a type of game that is not over. I mean, it's kind of the ship has sailed. They've made a lot of mistakes, and I think that ultimately this is probably going to be for the best. And I hope that Sony will help them to do things better going forward. Um, right now, the CEO of Bungie, the guy who spent like $2 million or whatever of his bonus, or I mean, I don't think it was a bonus, but 2 million of the dollars earned from the acquisition when Sony acquired Bungie to buy himself a classic car. He's still in the position right now, but there's definitely the possibility that he could end up getting fired after this, and I really hope he does, because it seems like his leadership has not been good. And yeah, it's just I don't know what's going to happen. Now, something that has definitely been something. Let me back up. One thing I've been wondering about is whether Sony acquiring Bungie would mean more of their stuff would end up being exclusive. I personally think that they're not going to take Destiny 2 away from either PlayStation, either PC or Xbox, especially since it is a live service game, and everything like that. And in addition to the fact that it's too late for them to take it away at this point. But would they potentially make Bungie do more exclusive stuff? That's a different question. I mean, with Destiny 1, there were multiple situations, well, Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 at launch, situations where they actually had exclusive gear and or strikes. I think maybe even story missions. I can't remember. I think it was just strikes and gear that were exclusive to PlayStation, because I was playing on PlayStation with Destiny 1, and I remember that there were certain guns that you could get on the PlayStation version the first year, and it wasn't until the second year that you could get them on Xbox. And then, of course, Destiny 2, they had at least one exclusive gun, and I think they had one or two exclusive strikes as well. And those were not available for a year on other platforms. So, since I wasn't playing on PlayStation, I didn't get the gun until it came to PC. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just all over the place. The TLDL of what I said is that I think that this is probably going to be for the best, and I hope that Sony will right the ship despite all the issues they've had. So, that's it.
All right. Yeah, I largely agree with everything you've said. I think this is pretty much what is needed, because Bungie, unfortunately, has been, while they've definitely, as you've said, they've had some hits with their expansions, they've had a few misses here and there with Destiny 2, and Marathon, that's just a complete that's a borderline mess, I guess you could say. And I will say that I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with reviving a dormant franchise. Because
Right.
I mean, granted, this is also a more obscure one, I will say. So I guess technically asking for a franchise no one wants, as opposed to, like, say, fans saying, "Hey, we haven't had a new F-Zero game in years. Where's that?" Or, "We haven't had a Star Fox game. We haven't had Banjo 3 Rare." Like, so I guess, like, it's different in that sense, since it's a franchise no one's asked for. But I think there still can be some good that comes from it. And I mean, while technically this isn't, a huge splash or anything like that, and it's not a game that people are going to be talking about, Konami kind of did something similar with this a few years ago, where they revived this old game from the Famicom, called Getsu Fumaden, and they revived the game, and the original game was just a 2D platformer, action 2D platformer. They revived the game and made it a roguelite game, and it's pretty fun, pretty decent, I'll say. It's not something that is extraordinary. I'm not gonna say drop what you're doing and play the game, but it's pretty fun. It's flashy. It's got beautiful art style. That traditional Japanese art. So it's definitely great. And I think it's an example of reviving a game that no one talked about or even knew. I mean, this is a game that also was only in Japan unless you went and imported the game or played a fan translation.
Mhm.
That was the only way to play it. So like they revived a game that no one talked about or most people didn't even know about, and they completely changed what the game was even like. And it was still pretty good. So I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with necessarily reviving Marathon, but I think they put a whole lot of pressure on themselves by making it a live service game, because with live service you need to constantly have revenue coming in. You need people to keep paying. um that's like the whole purpose of live service, is for that constant flow of revenue. So there's that pressure rather than just making one game where, all right, we have to make sure it's good when it's released and people will buy it, and if enough people buy it, we're good to go. Whereas with this, it's like, yeah, we're pretty much taking a gamble here. It needs to do well constantly. So I think that's partially one of the big parts where they messed up, not just the fact that they changed it. Now, granted, I still, even though I haven't played the original Marathon games, even though I have them since they were given out for free, and they've been free for years, I still would not want it to be live service, just because I would rather just have a traditional single player first person shooter. And if it's Bungie, then maybe something more akin to Halo campaign style stuff, stuff like that. So that's just that's sort of where my mind is at. But they definitely messed up too many times, I would say, with every fiasco that they've had, from just some of the delays and stuff, from the from plagiarizing artists' work. I think that just really landed them so much hot water that Sony knew that enough was enough. And yeah. So I definitely hope that Sony can straighten them out and get them on course. I feel like they probably won't completely change everything that they're doing, but they might do a little bit more, I guess, micromanaging, trying to make sure that everything's working. But I definitely agree with you 100% that the current CEO has to go. Like he's the main reason as to why things are just so messed up at Bungie right now. I mean, there could definitely be other factors that have played a role, but he has been the primary one, from mismanaging funds to, also, I believe you mentioned this before, or at least we discussed this one other time while discussing Bungie stuff, which is the fact that I think he fired or reduced most of the was it the IT team, or like the
Yeah, I
or
forgot
something like,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
like,
so. I think you're right.
yeah, so like something like that. And so people are talking about, hey, we're trying to discuss like cheaters and stuff in the game, and it's like, oh, you fired like half of the team or something like that. So the guy clearly has just not been managing everything properly, and that's just, he's got to go. And I mean, don't even give him a proper parachute out, because apparently he had enough of a parachute to get a fancy car. So he's not in any need, obviously, of any parachute. So I definitely hope Microsoft can fix this. And it's definitely a shame, because the fact that they came to Bungie to ask them for help for factions, or at least what was going to be factions for Last of Us.
Yeah.
Um, they came to them for help, and now Bungie, in order to get things right, needs Sony
Yep.
to help them out. So we'll definitely wait and see what happens. But it's been a mess. But hopefully things can be corrected. And who knows? Maybe they might make some changes. Maybe they might decide. We might decide to just scrap or at least we'll try to scrap having Marathon being live service only. We might make it single player campaign, but just add in some multiplayer elements as well. That would be cool, and maybe they can turn the game around. But all in all, we'll just have to see. But yeah, that's everything I have.
Yeah. Now, I do want to clarify what I was saying. I wasn't saying that I thought that Marathon as an IP was a problem. Like in terms of bringing back, because I mean it was the first game the Bungie made. You know, the Marathon games. They did Marathon first, and I think they just went straight to Halo after that. But I'm not. I could be totally wrong. There may be some game in between. Um, More than anything, my point was just that them making it into an extraction shooter, which nobody really
Mm,
asked for. You know, extraction shooters.
yeah.
There's a handful of them out there. Some of them have done well in the past, but ultimately they would have been better off doing something that was maybe somewhere in between like Halo and Destiny. But I don't know, because the thing is that like Destiny as both a single player and a co-op slash multiplayer game, at its core is really solid, really fun, and everything. And Marathon, I still haven't played those games, but I know that they were shooters, and that's something that Bungie's always been good at, is making shooters that feel good. I mean, Halo feels great. Destiny, even being at 30 frames per second, felt great. Destiny 2 feels amazing. And from what I could tell, it seems like everybody who played the beta on Marathon said that the gunplay felt really good, but it was just the core mechanics were not fun. And it's such a difference there, and I feel like there had to be a way that they could bring back Marathon without having to make it an extraction shooter. They could have just done either something that was very similar with some tweaks to the original games, or come up with something new that wasn't an extraction shooter that people didn't want. So that's really what it comes down to from my perspective. Now, I have to be clear for anybody who's listening who is like a Destiny player. There are people out there who have and currently play way more than I have. I mean, I have of between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 alone, I have around 12 to 1300 hours altogether, and I barely played in the last year. The most I have played was I think I've played maybe 2 hours in the past year, 2 to 3 hours, and most of that was over the past few months, and that was really like I played once shortly after I got my laptop, and then I played once yesterday or the day before when I was trying to record some footage. And that's the extent of what I played. And it's not even that I don't like it. I still actually really like the gameplay, at least the campaign stuff, but it's really just the fact that I haven't had the motivation to jump into something where there's so much stuff that I'm behind on to where I don't feel like I can ever really catch up. And I just have kind of moved on. Like, I want to go back and finish up the Final Shape campaign because I haven't done that. And I feel like that's a really good send off for the series. But, I have too many games to play. I'm in a much different position now than I was when I started playing Destiny in 2015. I started playing before I had kids, and most of my game time in Destiny 1 was before my oldest was born. And then from there, it's just been kind of I'll have times where I play a bunch, and then I take long breaks. And basically, after Final Shape came out, it's just been one extended break with a couple of short stints here and there. So, anyway, we'll see what happens with all this. Hopefully, Bungie's ship can be righted one way or the other. Destiny 2 had a good run, even with the stumbles here and there. One thing, this is just kind of random, but one thing that I found funny in the PC Gamer article is that one of the members of the PC Gamer staff. He once ignored multiple tornado warnings so he could finish a raid. And he wrote that he is worried for both the future of the game and its studio. And I just find that hilarious because I mean I understand both sides of that perspective. I mean, like in terms of the ignoring tornado sirens because I live in the Midwest now and have to deal with those occasionally. But then doing so to finish a raid is like, yep, I understand that because I've been in situations where I've been in the middle of a raid and I've been desperate to finish it, and there have been times where I've stayed up way too late trying to finish a raid, and sometimes I finished it and other times I didn't. Raids were fun though. I just haven't done one in a long time. There's like, I think 3 or 4 raids in Destiny 2 that have come out in the last several years that I haven't done. So I think, I believe at least one of those was, no, there's 2 of those that I had done on Destiny 1 and that I really loved, but they changed some mechanics for Destiny 2 for those, and I haven't done them since I came to Destiny 2. But anyway, let's move on.
All right. So the next topic is regarding BioShock. Now, the Take-Two CEO, Strauss Zelnick, this is coming from IGN. He was in talking about the latest 2025 quarterly earnings. IGN asked him about BioShock 4 being in danger of being canceled, and he said it's going to come out. That I can say hand on heart without question. And it's definitely interesting. Well, I'll actually come back to that part. He also had, we don't talk about how long our development cycles are. We have had some ups and downs along the way. That is accurate. And we have had changes in studio leadership. That said, as we have very big shoes to fill on BioShock because of the legacy of Ken Levine, the legacy of what has gone on before, which has been so successful. And we need to make sure that this experience is true to the BioShock DNA on the one hand, and a massive step forward on the other hand. That's always challenging. We think we're up to the challenge, but it's not been seamless. And this is also, the question came sort of in response to Jason Schreier, who was discussing about BioShock having an overhaul and discuss some of the issues that it was possibly having. And in fact, here's something he said. Jason Schreier mentioned was saying that in a recent all-hands meeting, Cloud Chamber staff were told that the company needs to become more agile and efficient, leading to worries that layoffs may follow. And that is, well, I think there might be a couple things. Okay, yeah. And then there's one last thing from Zelnick saying, I think it's a reflection of the fact that as entertainment businesses mature, consumers seek quality, and everyone realizes that the consumer is highly demanding, and properly so. The strategy of this company has always been to make the best entertainment, not necessarily the most entertainment. Of course, sometimes we've fallen short, but frankly, a precious few times. And I think some of our competitors have realized maybe a little late in the day that consumers are not okay with okay. Good is the new bad. Great is the new great. And our goal here is to make everything exceptional. And he also didn't mean to sound critical of other video game companies, because he said that this is really hard stuff, and you don't want to criticize someone for sticking with their creative talent, supporting them, and trying to get a great result. But he said that Take-Two would like to fail fast if we're going to fail. And yeah, and then lastly, what he said was, we're working hard to set BioShock up for the best possible future. Right now, we have a good game, but we are committed to delivering a great one. We're working closely with leadership at the studio to define its path. But that is essentially it. We don't have any other information about when it's coming out or anything like that, but that is everything we know so far. That being said, what are your thoughts on this?
All right. Well, swimming through the brain fog. I I guess pretty much this sounds like it's never going to happen. This is it's going to come out, I promise. Puts hand on his heart. Turns out he doesn't have a heart because he's a CEO of a giant corporation. But in all seriousness, we had seen those leaks that we talked about last year. I think it was last year. From, some leaked images from BioShock 4. And I want to believe that this could be still good. I don't expect it to be exactly as good as like what Ken Levine has put out. I just don't. I mean, I kind of figured that if we can get something that's on a similar level to BioShock 2, I'd be perfectly happy. Because BioShock 2 was not as good as BioShock 1, but like the combat was better than BioShock 1, and then the DLC that they did for it actually had a really good story to it and was also, still very good. But yeah, I'm curious of what exactly they'll do with it. I hope that my biggest hope is that they don't revisit either Rapture or Columbia, because I think that they need to do a completely new area and do something different. Um, Preferably not even try to connect it to either of the other two, really. Um, but it's one of those things where it's hard to say what exactly will come of it. Until I actually see something for real, then I'm going to remain skeptical. And of course, after, what we saw with Perfect Dark and then finding out that it was basically just a vertical slice, I'm even more skeptical. The problem is that the longer they take to bring this out, the worse, the more likely that it's not going to do well. Because it's just been a very long time since the BioShock games came out. I mean, BioShock Infinite, the DLC for that came out in 2014, I believe. And the proper, BioShock Infinite itself came out in 2013. And I think BioShock 1 was 2007, and then BioShock 2 was 2009, I want to say. And so it's just been such a long time that while those of us who played those games previously or played them more recently, in your case, I know you haven't finished it, but some of us will be excited about it, but there's a whole new set of gamers now, between Gen Z and Gen Alpha that have no idea what BioShock is, and who knows whether or not they'll actually be able to be interested in it. It's such a different space now than it was when we were younger. And I mean, obviously, you're about 8 years younger than me, so for you, I mean, it's different enough for you, but we're close enough in age to where we still lived through a lot of these same time periods. And for like my kids, I have no idea if they'll ever get into any of the game series that I enjoyed as a kid. Like, as it stands right now, they're obsessed with Minecraft. They like some Mario and Kirby and stuff like that, which, I mean, I didn't really grow up with it, but I did get a chance to play more of those as I got older and really enjoyed them. But I don't know if they'll, be like me and be interested in checking out old franchises that they never experienced. They may just keep playing the types of games that they're playing, and that's it. Like I just have no idea what's going to happen with them from that standpoint. And I know that there's a lot of kids out there nowadays, teens and younger, who grew up with Fortnite and other live service stuff. It's like Fortnite and Apex Legends and Overwatch 2 and things like that. And I don't know, it's just it's a very different time. And I mean, at least, companies are still making games for us, of course. And sometimes they're making games for people who are our age that don't actually play video games but want to take over our hobby with garbage. Fill our hobby with garbage so that they can try and brainwash us with their stupid ideas. Um, but yeah. Either way, I hope this happens. I just am going to remain skeptical until we get a release date. And I mean an actual concrete release date. And not just a release window or a release year. Because that means nothing. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I I was a bit curious about what he was saying, but then, especially listening to you mention stuff, I also became more skeptical because, this his statement came after what Jason Schreier reported about, concerns about the development of the game, and here he is coming out saying that everything's hunky dory, that the game is coming, guys. And I mean, I mean, it's also interesting too because it came right after uh earnings reports, so you've got your investors watching and listening, and I mean, sure, they're probably more so focusing on the numbers aspect and seeing like, hey, how does your revenue and profits look, how do your margins look, did you beat your earnings per share and stuff like that. But just to make sure there wasn't anything that could send a small dip in the share price, he probably might have just said, yeah, the game's still coming, and we're trying to make it the best that you can be. And I mean, sure, it sounds great on paper about trying to make sure that great is great, and good is the new bad, and you want to be excellent. And sure, that's a good mindset to have, but are you actually applying that in your game? And that's sort of like the one thing that I am concerned about with BioShock 4 is the fact that I don't know how they're going to handle it. And sort of like, and you even brought this up, which I think is a great point. And this isn't where I was where I was going to go, but you definitely brought it up, and I think it's definitely great to mention is the fact that this is a new era. It's the live service era, and so would they still make a BioShock that separates itself from the modern era? I mean, it's sad when Judas had to be, how there had to be a message, a statement saying that, hey, this game is old school because it doesn't have monetization, it doesn't have, online stuff. It's just a pure single player game that you buy and you play it and you have a good time, which is sad. That's considered old school. Back in my day, old school is considered, having the older graphics and stuff like that, and you're using actually bits and not 3D polygons and stuff. But the fact that features, I don't know, it's just a concern that I have is that they wouldn't implement something like that into BioShock 4, which I feel like they probably might. But yeah, you definitely hit the nail on there with the fact that the younger generation, they are growing up with live service stuff like Fortnite and Apex Legends and Overwatch 2, and it's really just whatever major streamers are playing, stuff like that, and normally they're playing live service games. So, and I guess even Marvel Rivals now, since that's a popular one right now too.
True.
So that's going to be something that's impacting, that they're focusing on. So if they're trying to cater toward that demographic, they're probably going to implement something like that in there to try to get them into playing those games, because they're just not possibly going to pay attention to it, something like that. Because unless it's an established or a big enough franchise, like for example GTA, like GTA, it could, that's a game that could come out 20 years from now or something like that, and people are still going to want to buy it day one because it's just that established. But BioShock unfortunately does not have the same weight, so they're probably still going to, if they wanted to do something, they would either have to just cater towards the older generations, or they would just have to sort of fold and implement some sort of online stuff, which is a real shame. But yeah, I agree. This is definitely we'll have to wait and see for something actual physical. And as you pointed out, a trailer isn't necessarily going to be good enough if it's going to be the same as Perfect Dark. Like, we're going to have to actually have something with a bit more substance to it, yeah, and whatnot. Although, I do feel like if BioShock 4 is coming and it is a game that is going to be finished and is going to have an actual release date, the one thing that would prevent me from buying it day one, which I definitely feel like is going to happen, is it's going to be $70. That's probably something I feel like is
Well, it's guaranteed
possibly.
that it will be $70. I would be surprised if it wasn't $80.
Oh, oh, oh,
With as much time as it's probably going to take for it to come out, I think we'll have $80 games before then, at least for consoles. It'll be the standard.
Yep, sadly. But yeah, it is what it is. But like you said, not gonna hold my breath on this, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Indeed.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
No, sir.
All right. So the next topic, this is, well, as we've discussed before, Helldivers 2 is coming to the Xbox Series X and S, but a new trailer has come out for it, and it seems to be teasing a potential Halo crossover. So also the date for the release is August 26th. I don't remember if we mentioned this before or not, but it's coming out in a few weeks. But the trailer for the release for the Xbox version has the Helldivers 2 city in the rain, and then showing some helipads in the background. And while that's going on, there's a saxophone playing, and something that people have mentioned, and something that people who played the game have noticed, is that it's very similar to the Halo ODST soundtrack, and it seems to be taken straight from it. And this has implied that there is a potential Halo crossover between Halo and Helldivers 2. And this wouldn't necessarily be the first time it's happened for Helldivers. Sony did this with Killzone last year for the game, and I'm pretty certain that this was only on the PlayStation, so I don't think this was available on the PC version. But yeah, it seems like this is going to be something that is going to be fully, definitely for the Xbox side. Whether or not it comes over to the PlayStation version, or even, I guess, the PC version as well, remains to be seen. But at least for Xbox, it does seem like there will be a good crossover there with content. So what are your thoughts on this, potential crossover?
Well, I think it's fantastic. It definitely brings me back to like the 6th or 7th gen, whichever one was GameCube and PS2 and all that. It brings me back to those when you'd have like the console specific version. I mean, like additional fighters and stuff, and like Soul Calibur 2, with GameCube having Link, and then I think PlayStation. What did PlayStation have? I think it had.
Is it Heihachi?
Yeah, I think so. and then it was Spawn in Xbox on the Xbox version. And it's like it's a small thing. Like that is something that to me I'm okay with that type of exclusive content. I mean, I think it's better obviously when it goes everywhere, but like that sort of thing, it's just because it's basically just a bonus for people who want it on that console. I mean, and most of the time, I would say the average person is not going to go out and buy, the buy a console just to get one character in a game or whatever, or anything like that. And so, especially hearing that, um, you said which franchise was it? That was included on the PlayStation version.
Killzone.
Yes, Killzone. Thank you. I was thinking Resistance, and it's like I know it's not Resistance because Resistance is one of their other franchises, but that's not the one. Yes, Killzone. So, like having the Killzone thing on the PlayStation one makes sense because it's, you got that content that fits with the PlayStation because it was a PlayStation game. It's never been anywhere else. And in this case, having Halo stuff in Helldivers, I mean, that fits perfectly too. And I mean, it would be funny if we actually got that content from each version on the PC version. Get the the Halo content on the PC version, and then also get the Killzone content on the PC version. Of course, I just think they should put the Killzone games on PC and Resistance and everything else. They need to just put lots of their other franchises elsewhere. You can bring back the PS3 games to PS5 for PlayStation players would be great. But yeah, either way, I love this. I love it when they do stuff like this. It's always fun. As a side note, someone mentioned this, and I thought this was a good thought. We had talked previously about the idea of Astrobot. I mean, coming to Nintendo because, I mean, it would be a perfect franchise to fit with Nintendo. It goes with the aesthetic and everything else. But the idea that people brought up that could potentially cause problems would just be like licensing stuff, and in order to get around that, they could just do Nintendo character costumes instead of the PlayStation character costumes. That would be another example where you could bring a great game and then just modify it to make it, fit with that platform. And it's not like Nintendo has a shortage of people that they could use, different characters they could use for those. So that would be fun. But anyway, yeah, I like this. I think it's good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is definitely a great thing. And while the concept of Halo being in the game, I would have agreed with, I think specifically choosing ODST is more fitting, considering the game and also the story and lore behind that as well. I mean, the fact that you start the game off, dropping down, and I mean, even the trailers that for ODST, it starts off with dropping down into a battle zone, and most of the people not even making it down to touch the ground. So it definitely fits in with that aspect of Helldivers, especially as you are trying to land down and also not make sure you don't accidentally crush your own teammates as you touch down as well. So yeah, I think having that crossover will help a whole lot with getting players to play. And I mean, I would say that if this happened to also be included in the PC version, I would almost be willing to jump back into the game just to see how everything looks. I mean, sure, it's just gonna be a whole lot of cosmetic stuff, obviously, but it still would be cool to see, and just running around and dying repeatedly, in my Halo attire. So, yeah, it's definitely a great thing, and I also agree, that having games, if there's gonna be exclusive content, as far as multi-plat stuff, just have it be stuff that is exclusive for each platform, where it's just a character or some other cosmetic stuff. And I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about Bungie and you mentioned about them possibly or about wondering if Sony was going to make something exclusive. I don't think that Sony will at least make games exclusive. Maybe there's some exclusive stuff or content that is exclusive, but if they do something similar to like what you said, where they have just platform exclusive content, then that would be pretty fine. With whatever multiplayer, with whatever content they do have coming up, and yeah, it definitely would work. But regarding this, I definitely think this is great. I definitely hope it's coming. It should be coming. Yeah, I mean, you don't just stick in Halo music and not do anything with it. Everything has to have a purpose with this marketing material. But yeah, I think that I guess whatever, if there were some people who are skeptical about getting the game or playing it day one, they probably won over a whole lot more people just by sticking that in there and teasing the fact that Halo could be coming over. Just because people on Xbox will be thrilled to have some extra Halo content coming. So it's definitely a great thing. We'll definitely have to wait and see if it's only on Xbox, if it's also coming to PC. But definitely good stuff there. But yeah.
Indeed.
All right. Whoops. All right. So last topic for the evening is coming from Insider Gaming, and this is a potential leak on the release date for the Xbox Asus ROG Ally and the Xbox Ally X. This comes from a data miner Bill Kuhn at Deal Labs, who says that the Xbox Ally X and regular Xbox Ally will launch on October 16th, and pre-orders will be coming up on August 20th, which is right around Gamescom, which is actually next week, as a matter of fact. So next Wednesday. And that's also possibly where it's going to be revealed as well. Now, the report does clarify that this has been mentioned only for the European market, though it is possible that the release date will apply to other regions as well, including North America, simultaneously. And considering the fact that usually releases like these happen on the same date, it's not too far-fetched to do that. And so this would also line up with Microsoft's showcase, which is on August 20th, and it's the day after the opening night. And that's essentially everything there, because Microsoft hasn't mentioned anything else. And also, the report does also sort of confirm other stuff that has been mentioned previously with leaks, such as the specs as well for the different models, and as well as the pricing as well. So I believe that was €599 or €599 for the Xbox Ally and €899 for the Ally X. So it does line up, and so it does seem to, I guess, add some more credibility for the original rumors as well. That being said, what are your thoughts on this supposed leak?
I'm sure it's true. I mean, we've talked enough about this back and forth, and it's one of those situations where lots of smoke equals fire. And so obviously we'll find out for sure next week. Yeah, but there's enough smoke to where it seems very likely this is actually going to be the case. And my personal prediction, just based on what typically has happened in the past, even though it hasn't been confirmed one way or the other, is that the price will translate over to US dollars in quote unquote equal amounts, that it'll be $5.99 US dollars and $8.99 US dollars respectively, or whatever the prices were. So sure, what was it? Yeah, 5.99 and 8.99. So it's in euros. I mean, that's the euro price, but usually they translate that over to the US dollars as the same numbers, at least, even though it's not equal. So it's technically more expensive over there than it is here.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree that this is definitely very likely. I think we've heard enough that, as you said, that we will hear something next week about, especially regarding pre-orders and release dates, after Xbox's show. I hope that what you're saying is correct about the pricing, because I think that would definitely be a whole lot better than the conversions, the price conversion from euros to USD, because I think that was more expensive, like I think like 700 or something for the base Ally, and then roughly 1,000 for the Ally X.
Yeah.
I think if Microsoft does something like that, it's pretty much gonna be dead in the water. But if it is something like this, I think it's much more much more feasible and easier to digest for people, especially if they're gonna just get cheaper the cheaper Ally. I think that's gonna be a whole lot better, and it's gonna help with pushing units. Otherwise, yeah, they're gonna have difficulty selling this thing. But yeah, I think this is pretty much gonna be accurate. All right. Any other thoughts on this or any other topics?
I mean, one thing that I forgot that happened last week, and we can at least just, if there was anything that stuck out to us, there was a Nintendo Indie Direct, indie showcase. It was like only 15 minutes long, and I can't even remember the name of the game that looked interesting to me. I know that there's one game that's from the creators of Shovel Knight called Mina the Hollower, which does look pretty cool. But that one is, obviously that's multi-platform as well, and that one is actually going to run at 120 frames per second on the Switch too, which is great. Gotta love it when that happens. I mean, obviously it's it's a 2D game, so of course it can run that well anyway, but it's still great that they're actually doing that. But there was some other game, I can't remember, it was something 3D that looked pretty cool. It was like you're some kind of underwater creature or something like that. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the game at all. I think it's this one, maybe Glaciered. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. It's called Glaciered. It looked actually pretty cool. I don't know if it's Nintendo exclusive or if it's coming to all platforms. I would guess it's probably multi-platform, but you're like playing as like some type of underwater creature, and like you evolve as you take on enemies and stuff, and it's like an action swimming game. And I'll have to look and see if that one's coming to Steam. But yeah, that one looked really cool. I was very interested in that. It was basically just that and Mina the Hollower. There were the two I was interested in. Yep, Glaciered is in fact coming to Steam, and there's a demo, which I will add to my library.
Nice.
But yeah, anyway.
Nice.
In fact, that was actually shown at Steam Next Fest, and I just missed it.
Wait, they show that during the Next Fest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that then.
But yeah, that was really all that came to mind.
Okay. Well then, we can move on to our recommendations and dissuasions. Go ahead and start things off.
All right, well, I don't have much. However, I do want to recommend that if you are going to record gameplay footage and you normally use HDR, make sure to turn it off before you record the footage. At least on, um, not, I think on Steam Deck it doesn't matter as much, because I feel like when I've recorded stuff on Steam Deck with HDR turned on, it hasn't negatively affected the footage. But at least when I've done it with, um, on my desktop, anytime I've recorded something with HDR turned on, then the footage looks really washed out on screens that don't have HDR. So my recommendation is that you make sure you turn off HDR before recording footage. Just that way, when it displays on other screens, it will look the way that it's supposed to look. Won't look as good as it does with HDR, but you know, when you have a non-HDR screen, it looks terrible. So, yeah, that's all I got.
All right, that's definitely a good recommendation there to make note of. A few different things from me. First thing is going to be if you're trying to find save file locations to swap out stuff from one system to another, or just to make backups. PC Gaming Wiki is definitely good for that. It has information for other stuff too, like what platforms the game is available on, different other like whether stuff has cloud saves, whether it has other different information like where your config files are. It's definitely good, but if you're just trying to find simple save file locations, definitely good to use that, because it definitely can be helpful. Next thing is going to be, if you are going to run Minecraft on Linux, specifically on Arch-based ones. I mean, I don't know how other ones like Debian-based or anything like that work, but at least with the Arch-based ones, do not use the wiki. Just go ahead, go into the package manager, download Prism Launcher. It's easy, simple. Just install it, log into your Microsoft account, and you're good to go. You can create up different instances. So I think possibly what that means is if you want to have different accounts logged in, or if you want to have different versions of the game you want to play, you can definitely do that, and have them all be separate files. So you can definitely do that. It's pretty simple to get started, so definitely use that if you want to play it on Linux. Also, if you want to play it on the Steam Deck as well, since that also is Linux-based. And then additionally, if you do want to play it on, if you do want to play Minecraft on the Steam Deck, there is I wish I had looked at this sooner, but there's a pretty detailed guide by Steam Deck HQ that has a pretty good tutorial for how to get it set up properly. The only thing that you'll probably have to just look elsewhere for is just trying to find out the proper control setup, because the controller settings that they've mentioned weren't listed among the community layouts, so I had to go for whichever one seemed to be the most popular and most upvoted. The one I found actually had gyro support, so that was pretty good as well. So for everything else, though, for everything else, the support there is the tutorial worked pretty well. So I definitely would recommend using that. And I think even just in general, you could still do the same thing for Minecraft in general, for Linux, since that tutorial definitely works the same way. But yeah, that's everything I have for recommendations.
All right. Good stuff. Yeah. I definitely will have to keep that in mind for down the road, because I'm sure whenever the Steam Deck 2 inevitably comes out, it'll probably be something I get. And at that point, I might start letting my kids use the Steam Deck. So having Minecraft available on there would be neat. But mostly, I that would be a good way to start getting them into PC gaming. So that's the goal. I want to do it. The only real reason that I haven't done it yet is mostly because there's not a good place to put the PC in the living room unless I attach it to the TV. And so basically, like, theoretically, what I could end up doing, and there's a decent chance I'll end up doing this, is I may just like take the if I build an extra PC using my last motherboard and CPU and put like the 2080 Ti in there whenever I inevitably upgrade my graphics card, I could potentially set that up as being like specifically a living room PC that is set up to basically just run big picture mode by default, and then if anything further needs to be done with it, that's when we can work together to change things up as needed. But right now, it's kind of a down the line thing because it's just, yeah. That's the one problem with the way we have our living room set up, is we have it set up specifically so that we can have lots of people over, because when we have all of our family over, especially, that's like 20 people, and so it's good having lots of couches and everything like that, or if we host a big group of people for some other reason, like when I have my when I have my brothers-in-law and their boys, and sometimes some other guys over for the men's get together around Christmas time. It's great having all that couch space, but because of all that, we don't have room to put a desk and a PC. And so really the only way I can set it up if I want to do that is to set it up more or less like a console, just attached to the TV, and that's something that I have to figure out. What I'm kind of thinking that I might try doing, if I can figure out a good way to do it, would be setting it up so that there is both a monitor and the TV connected, so that I could have like a small space where I have the monitor set up so that if there's any like troubleshooting or whatever that needs to be done, it doesn't have to be done on the TV, because then you have to look up, because we have it mounted up above the mantle of our fireplace. And then, anything that's smaller that needs to be done, it can just be done on the monitor to make it a little easier. Still have a mouse and keyboard set up, but I don't know. All this is, once again, it's like potential things in the future, nothing set in stone, just ideas floating through the fog of my brain. So, yeah. Yeah. So I guess we can do dissuasions. So, my dissuasion is, do not try to run Batman Arkham Knight with less than 2 gigs of video RAM. Because, yeah, it was, even with the lowest settings, it was like at almost 1.8 gigs of VRAM that was needed to run it with the lowest settings. And my laptop only has 1 gig, so it was like, the sad thing is that the game would run better on the Switch than it runs on that. But also keep in mind, the Switch is 2015 tech versus the laptop being a combination of 2009 and 2010 tech. So, but it's also cool though, thinking about the fact that, like, I mean, not even just the Switch, but like the Steam Deck runs those games way better than they run on that old laptop, and it weighs like a tiny amount comparatively speaking. I mean, the fact that I can get 40 to 60 frames per second with pretty dang good visuals on that little screen, versus the 15 average dropping into the single digit frame rates on the old laptop. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's a lot newer technology with the Steam Deck, but anyway.
What you thinking about it now, it reminds me, I don't remember if it was just as bad or possibly worse. It reminded me of how the Wii U, they were trying to run the Wii U, Arkham Knight on the Wii U, and I can't remember if it was just the tank section or just the game in general. Like, they tried to run it and the game was just horrible. Like, the frame, it was just like not good. So they had to scrap porting it over to the Wii U because of that.
I did not hear that, but that I believe it. It makes sense.
And so I was wondering now, it's like, huh, so I was wondering how much video, how much VRAM did the Wii U even have?
I think it might have been
I
less
mean-
than a gig.
Yep, that would definitely do it. That would definitely do it. But yeah, good stuff there. Definitely a good dissuasion there. My dissuasion is just going to be, and most people probably won't be in this camp, but in case they're trying to help someone who could be looking for a PC. Unfortunately, once again, AMD is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and fortunately, it seems like they're going to be only releasing this type of card with OEMs, and so fortunately, it's not like a card you can just buy yourself, but they're releasing the RX 6060, and sadly, a lot of the stuff that was bad about the RX 6060 XT, or at least the 8GB model, is going to be worse in the RX 6060. So it's definitely, and people already said that the 8GB model of the 6060 XT was something to avoid. So definitely the 6060 is something you should also avoid as well. So if someone's trying to, if you got a friend or something like that who's trying to buy a pre-built and they're looking at different stuff and they see something that has a 6060, tell them to avoid it like the plague, because if the 6060 XT 8GB model, 16GB model is fine. Let me just make sure that's distinction is that 16GB version is fine. The 8GB one wasn't doing so hot. So if they see something like the 6060, tell them to avoid it and get something better. Like either get something with a 16GB 5060 XT. I mean RTX 5060 X. I'm sorry, Ti, not XT. 5060 Ti, or get the 16GB 6060 XT, because those ones will actually perform decently. But the anything below those is just you want to avoid. So yeah. That is everything that I have.
Sounds good. Well, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Today I put out a video discussing about the sad state, and I teased about this last week about possibly doing this. I mentioned the sad state of console gaming, where we just don't have discounts for consoles anymore. In fact, it's complete opposite now, where console prices have gone up. And pretty much summarize my thoughts on how we probably will never get a discount for consoles ever again, sadly. And I also, also pointed in a few other things about PC game that unfortunately are a bit of a pain, and some people have been feeding into that as well. But yeah, that's what I've been putting out there. Not certain about what the next video I'm gonna make is. We'll definitely have to wait and see, but yeah.
So what's the ratio of comments from console fanboys ragging on the PC to people just being genuine about it?
Nothing so far, but I am definitely interested in seeing what happens. I feel like the last two videos, after a couple days, is when I started getting comments. So I'm gonna wait a few more days and see, what happens there, because I wonder if people are just going to watch like the first or like the first half of the video and think I'm only gonna be bashing consoles, without seeing like later on where I say, all right, I can't let PC slide completely either, in that aspect as well. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, it did come from my feed today, and I added it to my downloads. I haven't really listened to much of anything today, since I was basically spending the whole day working on that video and listening to that. But yeah, good stuff. I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. Well, for me, I have my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87, and for a change, I actually have something that hopefully will be out next week. It has been a big project. It's been taking a lot of time to get done, but I've made some good progress. It's coming along very well. Um, it's going to be a long video. I mean, it's going to be over an hour and a half long. But my intention is, because of the way I have it set up, that I'm also going to release it as separate parts and just put like a little intro card at the very beginning that says, "Hey, these are sections of a much longer video. If you want to watch the full video, if you want to watch the full version, the link is down below. But otherwise, check out these individual sections." And so yeah, lots of discussion there. There's like one or two sections where, because of the fact that I figured out some stuff that I had forgotten to say. I recorded it separately this morning, and because my voice is, got a little bit of the sick in it, it sounds a bit different. And of course, the lighting was a little different in the room as well, and my beard was less trimmed because it's grown since the last time I recorded. I mean, I just trimmed it this evening, but so it's kind of all over the place, but it's going to be a really thorough video. It's talking about all the things I love about PC gaming, and I've already prepared myself mentally for all the console fanboys who are going to come in. They're not going to watch the video. They're just going to comment, saying all the things that they hate about PC, most of which are probably going to be based on no firsthand experience. And I'm expecting probably like a 50-50 dislike ratio, even though I hardly talk about consoles at all, and the stuff that I say about consoles is all 100% true. And the stuff that isn't necessary, that may be false, is not like egregious, and I basically say, hey, I might be wrong about this part. Let me know, if this has changed. But so on and so forth. Anyway, point is that this video is in the works. I've made a lot of progress on it. It should be out by this time next week, God willing. We'll see how much progress I can make, because I'm probably not going to get to work on it anymore until Saturday, but I'm hoping Saturday to finish it up. And then also split it up, because I already put like little title cards for each of the different sections, or at least that's what I've been doing as I've been going. So it should theoretically be pretty easy to split up into different sections. It's just a matter of getting it all done. So there's that. There is the YouTube channel for the podcast at the Orange Box Podcast. And every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues, the video version goes live on YouTube. And it also goes live on Rumble at the same time. That's not a custom URL, but if you search for the Orange Box Podcast, you can find the video version there. And the video version not only has all the same audio content, our discussions, as well as the background music that I always include, but also you get to see our beautiful faces. And if you don't like to see our beautiful faces, you can turn off your screen whenever we come up. And otherwise, you also get clips of the games we've been playing and just general good stuff. But then there's the audio only version of the podcast, which goes live on every major podcast platform, every major audio podcast platform, at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, once again barring any technical issues. And you should be able to it's all the same content, just without the video. So if that is how you prefer to digest your podcasts, that is a good place to go. To give more specifics, there's Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pandora, and various other audio podcast platforms that I can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, check that out. And then finally, I have my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. There's no new recipes up, haven't been any recipes for a while, but I'm hoping to start getting some recorded again soon, at least sometime after I get better. because right now I'm definitely not recording anything while I'm sick. But yeah, that should be everything. If you want to contact us, you can send us an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can write us on Twitter/X at theorangeboxpod, although we don't actually have any activity on there. I haven't posted any of the episodes in many months because I just don't use social media apart from Discord and YouTube. So, but it's there, and if you write us, we'll be sure to get back to you and or read your comment or question or whatever on the podcast. But that is everything, I think. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, don't try to run modern games on very old laptops. Orange Box Podcast, out.